Hi everybody, FIDE Master Dennis Monokroussos here, and today we're going to take a look at a game from a simul played many years ago between Alexander Alekhine and a player named Van Mindeno, or I think there's also some other name that's been given in the databases or in various books. Anyway, it's black to move here. White sacrificed a piece, probably unsoundly. At least that's what I know from the source materials, but I haven't really gone through the source materials. So I know the conclusion of the game, or at least I've seen the conclusion of this game a few times over the years, but I'm not sure I know how to get to there from here. But anyway, in some training material I've got, it was suggested that this is a fun position for analysis with black to move, and that ultimately black should be able to rebuff white's attack, though it's extremely difficult. So let me show you how this position arose, and then I'll just try to see what I can come up with, and of course you can try to do the same. So e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, d6, d4, takes. Okay, knight takes is also normal, but Alekhine played queen takes d4, takes, knight c3, knight f6, bishop g5, bishop b7, castles, castles. Now here, rook h to e1 is, I guess, the main move, but h4 is interesting and not bad. And then here, I believe, both king to b1 and yeah, I think king to b1 is actually considered the main move. But all right, knight to d5 is thought not to be so great, but very dangerous. Okay, hg5, knight e7, queen e7, hg5, and here I guess is where we're going to start. So let's flip the board around and take a look from black's point of view and see if we can come up with the best defense. Okay, well, as I mentioned last time when responding to some viewer questions, and the question was, well, okay, my thinking seems to be kind of organized. What do I do? How do I approach a position? Do I look at everything? How does it work? And as I pointed out, well, no, I mean, no one looks at every move, or at least no one who's sane looks at every move, or unless they have an awful lot of time and it's a position where you're trying to solve a checkmate in two problem or something like that. Normally no one ever does anything like that. So what do you do? Well, again, in part it's based on just experience. So you have often some general idea of what kinds of things to do in a position that you're receiving for the first time. Secondly, there's just going to be your intuition, which is, again, kind of based on experience. But I mean, experience I'm thinking of in terms of, let's say, general principles, whereas intuition is going to be at the level of moves. So, quote-unquote, intuitively, I mean, the moves that I'm going to look at first are, of course, moves to save my knight on f6. Now, the experience aspect would come in principles like this, that when you're under an attack, sometimes it's good just to return material to break the attack. So, at some level I might consider leaving the knight on f6 if by so doing I can just break white's attack and maybe come out of it with even or even maybe a small material advantage. So from that standpoint, a move like rook f or rook a to e8 could be considered. Okay, I'm not sure that I'm really considering that move, but that general rule of thumb about returning material when possible to break an attack does come to mind. Okay, so let me stop here for a moment, stop talking for a moment, and try to generate some some candidate moves. Okay. Well, of course, there's knight takes e4. I mean, this certainly is pretty obvious, and not only because it's grabbing a pawn, of course, and saving the knight, but also because I want to block the queen's path to h4. So that's a pretty natural reason for knight takes e4. Okay, what else? Well, knight h7, trying to plug up the h-file a little bit, and if I can continue with bishop or queen takes e4, which gives this knight further protection, then that might be satisfactory as well. Already against this I see a possible problem, though, which is g6. I'm not sure if it works, but ideas like this. Here, queen c4, king h8, takes, and rook h1 is mating. So it's mate in one, in fact. Of course, after queen to c4, I realize that there are going to be interpositions that will stop that. So all I'm talking about now are tactical possibilities. And in fact, maybe, okay, queen on f7, you see something like rook h7, king h7, knight g5 check. Of course, on rook h7, there's queen takes c4, but one of the key tactical ideas is the value of inverting moves. So you might think, okay, rook h7, king h7, rook h1 check, king g8, queen c4. Okay, actually, sorry, this doesn't work either. Let me try this the right way. Queen c4 with the idea of rook to h1 mate, and if queen f7, then you have this check. Okay, of course you can play rook f7. And then it seems a bit harder to make something work. You could try knight to g5, but queen takes g5 is check. So the idea was queen g5. If it's not check, you can play queen takes f7 and threaten rook h1 mate. Anyway, so this is just showing a tactical possibility. It's not meant as a serious line yet. Okay, so we have knight e4 is one possibility. We have knight h7 as a second possibility. Let me get rid of all the arrows there. Okay, what else? Well, queen takes e4 is another move worth considering. Trying to just trade queens off, get rid of white's some of white's attacking force. All right, bishop takes e4 doesn't look too plausible, but maybe this deserves a quick look, but I'm pretty skeptical about its value. One funny idea would be g takes f6. Okay, of course, if queen f6, queen e4, we're up a piece. So gf, and now, okay, one idea would be knight to g5. All right, I don't even know if there's any real need for this, but this is just maybe emphasizing some of the difficulties that black might have. The point is, okay, if he takes, then rook or queen to h8 is mate. All right, let's see. Any other candidate moves? Well, I mentioned sticking a rook on e8, so we can at least do that. Let's try rook f to e8, so we keep the a7 pawn protected, and maybe give the king a flight square to f8, and maybe from there to e7. With the idea being, okay, gf, queen f6, takes, and material is even, but black is probably going to win the e4 pawn, and is certainly not getting attacked. So even something very simple like this might be okay. All right, well, let's go back here and try to hit these. Well, actually, good principle is to not go through these one at a time in order, but to first do a little triage to try to come up with what looks like the most promising approach. So there are usually two things that you can do very quickly. One is if you can find a variation that's very easily refuted, to kind of get that out of the way. Or again, if you think there's a line that's critical and looks extremely promising, to cover that one quickly, if not first. All right, well, let's look at knight e4. So this is both satisfying from a greedy perspective and also because it's blocking the path of the queen to h4. All right. What do we do now? Well, one obvious way to proceed is to double rooks on the h-file. And that comes with the threat of rook to h8 mate. It's not going to be stopped by g6 certainly, because then there's going to be mate on h8 with the queen or the rook. And if f5, then there's the typical g6 move, cutting off the escape. So, okay, does it really matter where we put the rooks? Well, it could, because of the threat of knight takes g5, I suppose. So let's look at rook h5 first. This seems pretty natural, protecting the pawn and preparing to double. Okay, what does black do here? This doesn't look like much fun for him. Okay, one idea. You can play maybe f5, trying to escape. Okay, and now if rook 8h1, of course, king f7. So let's try g6. And now queen e6. All right, now this is actually looking kind of like the game from what I remember. I'm not sure if this is the game, but it might be. And now there's okay. Basically, what we want to do is we want to keep the g6 pawn obviously alive, so he can't run away. But how do we do it? Well, one way to do it, I think, is knight to e5. And let's see if this actually works. So the point is, okay, if queen takes, then hey, complete success. We just play rook over here. Game over, right? Well, there's queen f4, and then queen h6. So okay, let's take instead. Queen takes e5, d takes e5, And now rook over. Okay, and there's not even any way to delay the mate. So that's deadly. What else can black do? Okay, well, queen takes a2, so that maybe needs to be considered. All right, let's look at this first. Okay, so if d takes e5, then we play queen c4. And that stops queen takes g6, and if queen takes, then rook here. Ah, but then there's queen f1. Queen f1, rook f6. Here, okay, and white wins the rook, but he's given up way too much material already. What's best? Maybe knight f2, rook g2. Doesn't really matter. Okay, and this is winning for black. All right, so it's a very clever little idea, but it's not quite working. But of course we don't have to do that. We can play now rook d to h1. Much better. Now the point is on queen g6. Now we have queen c4 check. Ha ha ha. And the black king is not running away. At some point, he's got to stick somebody on f7, and then rook to h8 is mate. Okay, so that trick works. Let's see if there's anything else that can be done. Okay, there's queen takes a2 maybe. So this has a small threat, queen a1 mate. But let's see, queen c4 check. Take, rook f6. Maybe does that survive? Seems to survive. So here takes, rook f6. Well, okay, but here white hasn't given up that much material yet. So this time it's at least interesting, but still black should be okay. What's the count here? Yeah, black has at the moment 3 pawns for the exchange, and maybe knight takes f2 is even better. So yeah, so this is okay for black. All right, so this trick feels like it should be right. So knight e5, queen a2 though, very annoying. Okay, let's take a last look here and see if we can bust this clever defensive idea. I mean, one thought I have is, very briefly, was queen takes e4, and then rook d to h1. But then black has queen a1 check and queen takes h1. So that won't be decisive either. Right? Let me see. Queen takes. Bishop takes. Knight f7's no good, just rook takes f7. Yeah, so this is just not good enough. In fact, it's terrible. I mean, black's up a rook and a bishop, so this is a complete non-starter. Okay, so what does white do here? What else can white try instead of knight to e5? Well, okay, again, so we have the original... Oh, no, we don't have that here because on this... Queen takes g6. Okay, well, what about knight e5 now? Aha, see again. So this is a very common little tactical idea. What you do is you invert the move order of your combination, and sometimes that works. So this is what we needed to do. Okay, so we just do it this way, and it's over. Okay, so again, if d takes e5, queen c4 check, at some point black plays something to f7, and rook h8 is mate. And, well, what else is there? I mean, he can cough up material with queen h5, and well, okay, maybe this isn't so bad. So let's see, what's the dead body count here after this? All right, so black has got a rook, 2 pieces, and a pawn, although white can regain that immediately for the queen. Okay, but queen c4 check, rook f7, rook takes f5. Well, no, that's no good. Knight to d6. So maybe nothing better than queen e5. What now? Okay, if just knight f2. Rook g5 goes nowhere. Rook f7. It's alright. I mean, approximately something like this. And yeah, black is fine. I don't know if he's winning. Could be. But certainly no troubles here. Okay, so this looks promising, but It's coming up just short here somehow. Okay, so I feel like I must be missing something simple. So f5. Is there anything besides g6 here? Okay, again we can try to invert moves, but okay, it doesn't really, I don't think it really works here. Okay, so let's see. So it could be knight to e5, you could look at queen c4 check first. We could even consider doubling rooks, although after king f7, I'm not sure that that's so fantastic. Alright, well let's see. Okay, rook d to h1. Okay, now g6 is a deadly threat. And king f7 looks forced. I mean, we could play something cheap and amusing like queen g7 takes rook h7. But, okay, well, king g6, rook 1 to h6 mate is always pleasant. Okay, if king to g8, rook e7. I don't really think the white's going to have more than perpetual here. Alright, so his dream would be to play like rook h to h7. Of course, give a check on g7. It would be mate here, but check on g7, then play knight h4 and knight to g6. So, alright, this is, at least in principle, pretty dangerous, but, I don't know, just rook f7, right? And we can grab some pawns, but, you know, it's only 2 pawns for the piece, and at best, white is going to scramble for a draw. So this isn't really so promising. Okay, so that's not going to do it. What else can we try? We could try knight to e5, I guess. But it's kind of hard to believe this is going to work. Just queen takes e5. g6. I mean, this is just to look at the most exaggerated variation possible. And, okay, queen to d2, sorry, to d2. And if nothing else, queen h6, and black wins super easily. Okay, so knight e5, not working. g6 didn't seem to work, but it was close. Okay, queen c4 check, we'll try one more. And here, just d5. Okay, if rook d5 takes, queen f7, there's nothing. There's no second rook to double, so that's hopeless as well. Alright, so g6 seems to have to be the move, if there is any move here. Okay, and now queen e6 is forced. Alright, so what in the world am I missing? What am I missing here? This is slightly disturbing, especially if this is just the game continuation and I'm not remembering how to do this properly. Okay. Alright, rook d to h1 sure looks plausible. Queen g6. Okay, so we tried knight e5, and it didn't work because of queen takes h5. Okay, well, hey, there's a clue right there. Let's go back here and not play rook to h5. Aha! So we can learn. So now the question is, do we go to h4, h3, or h2? What do we do? Okay, well, let's try going to h2. Because on h2, okay, as opposed to h4, then maybe there's no knight takes g5 possibilities. Well, probably that's nothing serious anyway. Okay, well, let's try rook to h2 and see what happens. Okay, so again, we know the threat. So let's try f5, g6, queen e6, and now, okay, again, rook d to h1, queen g6, knight e5. Okay, does white have any, or does black have any way of wriggling out of this mess? I mean, you can always play queen h6, I guess. So how will this fare? So queen h6. Okay, but now the material situation is completely different. Rook takes. Okay, de is no good still, so takes. Knight takes c6, and forget about it. Okay, black is just completely lost here. Okay, so rook to h2 is, we found an improvement. Alright, so now we have to try to see if there's some other way for black to squirm here. Alright, well, the drawback of the rook being on h2 as opposed to h5 is that now black can play knight takes g5, so we got to give that a try. Okay, and the point being that on rook d to h1, now f6 or f5. Which do we play? Let's try f6. Okay, so now by playing f6, there's no knight to e5 funny business. Queen c4, d5 is nothing. Okay, and there's no rook h8, king f7, knight g5, fg, queen g7, king g7, rook h7, and rook e7 stuff. I mean, it's legal, but it won't amount to a hill of beans. Alright, so this is looking pretty acceptable for black. Alright. Can we improve for white from this position? Okay, queen h4, f6 seems to be a dead end. Rook e1. Well, on rook e1, maybe knight takes f3 is going to cause extreme pain. So we can forget about that one too. Alright, so this is looking pretty adequate. Now, we could try one more idea maybe. So instead of rook h2, how about rook h4? Let's give this one a try. And on okay, but no, this is silly. I was thinking knight g5, queen g5, rook g4, but of course queen g5 is check once again, which is a very typical kind of reason why white plays king to b1 in variations like this much of the time, which I mentioned earlier. Okay, so is there anything the rook is doing on h4 that's better than it did on h2 if we can't play that knight g5, rook g4 line? Well, you could try rook g4 straight away, but it just doesn't really seem to do anything, just f6. Okay, rook e1, knight f3 still looks pretty good. And if rook z to h1, again f6, seems perfectly hunky-dory. So this is a problem. Knight takes g5 is. Huh. Okay, well, something else we could try maybe. Well, yeah, I mean, rook e1, oops, sorry. Throwing in rook e1 doesn't seem to do anything in this position. Alright. Okay, so I'm kind of stymied at the moment. Alright, let's try rook h4. Knight takes g5. Okay, knight e5 here is met by queen takes e5, so that's not going to work. Okay, let me try one more thing with the rook h2 line. So rook h2, knight g5. Let's just try taking. Knight takes g5, queen g5, f4. Okay, and now what does black do? Okay, queen f6 would be amusingly bad, because then rook d to h1, and g6, queen takes f6. Okay, so that's no good. What else can we do? Okay, if we play queen to e7. Let's try this. And now, okay, if rook d to h1, was also queen d3 maybe, but still f6 or f5. Okay, so this, f6, yeah, black really seems to be fine here. Okay. So let me look at rook h5 one last time and see if there's nothing better. f5. Okay, so two key moves seem to be knight e5 and g6. Okay, so knight e5, again, queen takes e5. Okay, so we tried g6 here, so how about if we just trade? Takes g6. Okay, and we looked at things like this. Rook f6, rook d to h1, rook g6, check, here takes, knight f2. And black is fine and probably winning. Okay, and so on g6, queen takes d4, rook d to h1, check, and queen h6 wins. Okay, so knight e5 for sure doesn't work, and on g6, queen e6. Okay, we looked at knight e5, and on this, queen takes a2. Okay, is there anything here at all? So we have to stop the mate. Okay, so what if we're just patient and we try something like c3? Well, okay, just takes. And on here, then check, here, then takes. Oh, no, okay, so that wins. All right, so that's good stuff. But is there anything else here? I mean, there are a lot of checks. Maybe queen a1, king c2, bishop to a4, king d3, bishop to b5. Okay, c4. Yeah, okay, maybe white's winning in this line. All right, so let's go back. All right, so after c3, we can do this. So check right away. King c2. Now, okay, if bishop to a4, b3, queen a2, this looks promising. King d3, queen d1 is of course a disaster, so b3 is forced. And now, okay, queen a2, just something simple. Okay, if king c1, queen a3 is destructive, this might be even better, but this looks pretty killing. Point being king c2, then queen takes b3 check, then queen takes d1 check, game over. And if king to d3, okay, if, what do we do? Well, we can do this, because on this, then queen d2 is mate. Okay, white's not going to survive this mess. All right, so c3 doesn't seem to work, queen c4 doesn't seem to work, because takes rook f6, and we're there in time. Again, we've had this variation a few times now. And so going back to what position? To this position. Okay, if rook d to h1, queen g6, knight e5, queen h5, and that's why we rejected this line in the first place. So after rook h5, de, queen takes e5, well, or whatever. It just seems like white is fighting for a draw at best. Alright, so I don't know if this was the solution. I'll let you know. You can, of course, figure it out on your own. And but maybe next week I'll do a show where I look at the correct variations, assuming I didn't get them. And hopefully I didn't embarrass myself too much. But in any case, hopefully this is instructive for some of you. For others of you, you'll get a good laugh at if I missed something really horrible, and you can question my competence, though hopefully politely. Anyway, it seems that maybe there's something crucial about which rook move gets made here by white, but I didn't really see the solution to knight takes g5 on moves other than rook to rook h5. And on rook h5, it looks as if by sacrificing the queen, black can survive there. Anyway, we'll see what the story is. I'll let you know next time. Please don't post computer analysis to the comments. So that'll be my one request. So if you have comments, whether it's your own analysis or general feedback, that's great. But if it's but don't bother with computer analysis. I mean, I'll present the kind of finished product next time. And but let's leave it clear for people who are trying to solve it on their own. All right, so thanks a lot, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.